Welcome in to Around the Felt, Season 2, Episode 4, AFC South Edition. Reagan, how are you doing today, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here with you and Dave and Garrett. It's going to be a fun pod. We're almost halfway through the divisions, and I'm just getting that feeling in my tum-tum. I'm ready to go. I mean, can the NFL season start? Can it?
I know. I love doing the preseason pods, but the more and more we do, the closer and closer we get to the season. I'm like, all right, I'm good with summer. Let's just get football back. That's all I want. But some decent amount of news going around the league, Reagan, particularly Brandon Aiyuk. It seems inevitable now that he will be traded. A lot of teams floated around. Apparently, Washington's out of the sweepstakes. New England offered him apparently $32 million a year or north of that. He does not want to play for the Patriots, so he still does want to play for a team that can compete. The Pittsburgh Steelers seem to be the team that are in the driver's seat. Reagan, do you see Aiyuk getting traded to the Steelers? Apparently, the holdup is they want a player back. They're not in love with the compensation, but Aiyuk also has to accept a deal. It seems like the Steelers is the fit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely seem like the favorite. I kind of hope he goes there. I already had our graphics guy work up a jersey swap, so, I don't want that to be wasted. We're trying to be on the ball on that one, but it does make a lot of sense. I mean, they traded Deontay Johnson away, so they kind of are, in my opinion, missing that true number one. I don't really believe George Pickens at this point is a number one wide receiver. Could he become a number one wide receiver? Sure, but I think if this team truly is in a win now mode, which I guess they've been in for the past 17 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't had a rebuild yet. And that's kind of why they had Kenny Pickett as their quarterback for a while, because they were always too good to get a quarterback. So yeah, I mean, it would be a great spot. I mean, I'd love for the Jets to go maybe make a move for him. Some of these other contenders. I mean, I used New England and Washington are out, and I'm sure he'd probably only want to go to a contender. I mean, I saw some talks about maybe to the Browns for an Amari Cooper swap plus picks.
I did see that.
But where else? I mean, you would think there's some teams that could use him. I mean, maybe Green Bay. I mean, they got the money and they're loaded on the wide. They have a bunch of young wide receivers, so maybe they make a move to go get a stud to give Jordan Love and give up some of those younger names that they're not paying anything.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't seen Green Bay's name floated around, but I think that would be a really good fit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely would be, because Jordan Love, while he has a bunch of talented guys, he doesn't have a true number one, and that's another team that's in the win now mode, I would say.
Yeah, I'm seeing rumors that the Niners want to add another receiver, and that's despite them drafting Ricky Pearsall in the first round this year. Devontae Adams' name has come up a little bit. I think that'd be intriguing. A lot of people seem to think he's going to be a Jet sooner rather than later, but could Devontae Adams go to the Niners, team up with Deebo Samuel in that offense?
The money would be they'd have to do some juggling with that money.
Yeah, how would that work? How would that work?
And at that point, why wouldn't you just pay Aiyuk and get I mean, do you want a younger guy for slightly more expensive? Like, don't get me wrong, I'd rather Devontae Adams. For a 1-year thing, I'd much rather Adams. But long term, I would rather Aiyuk. So to me, that doesn't really make sense. I'd rather just pay Aiyuk and have him locked up for the next 4 to 5 years versus Adams. How many more good years does he have left? I mean, he definitely regressed last year, even though he's still good. Don't get me wrong, he's still a top 10 guy, but he's definitely not what he was in Green Bay. And you can see he's starting to regress. So how many more elite years does he have left is the real question.
It's a good point, Reagan. Moving on, Nick Foles officially retires as an Eagle, Philly legend, leading them to their only Super Bowl victory, 1 Pro Bowl season under his belt. Your thoughts on Nick Foles calling it a career?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's Tom Brady's papa there. So
now Eli is.
Yeah.
Eli is. You
Eli's
say
more
Foles
like
is the step papa.
No, Eli's like the grandpa, and Foles is the papa. But no, yeah, obviously, okay, whatever. But still, the fact that Nick Foles will be an Eagles legend forever, banners fly forever. But I mean, the fact that it's something we probably will never see again like that, of a backup quarterback stepping in and leading the team through a whole playoff run and winning the Super Bowl. And he had a ridiculous Super Bowl. So,
oh yeah,
he got paid a bunch throughout his career because of big moments with only Philadelphia. First time around was good. Left to the Rams, sucked. comes back to Philly, gets paid again with the Jaguars and Bears. And it's funny, the guy was only good on the Eagles, and everywhere else he went, he just turned into a pumpkin. So he was a good looking jack-o'-lantern when he was in Philadelphia, and then it was like, hey, it's November 1st when he left the team, and he was one of those like deteriorated pumpkins by the end of Halloween. So
Yeah. He's
that's
got that statue that is going to stay in Philadelphia for a very long time. And I
him
saw,
and Rocky.
him and Rocky, Philadelphia
Who else?
legends.
Who else is on the Mount Rushmore for Philly?
Oh, man. I don't
EDP?
know.
No,
Not their
definitely not.
cheesesteaks. They're overrated, but is that too far? Saying their cheesesteaks are way overrated?
I mean, that is. I said EDP, so I think mine's a little farther. But regardless, I mean, you would have to think between him and Rocky, those are some legends right there. I mean,
Yo, do you know the graphic that I'm about to talk about? The one where it was back in the day, and it was Brady, Bortles, Case Keenum, and Nick Foles.
Hey, man.
Oh, what a
Funny,
fucking
all
graphic.
those guys. Yeah, I mean, Case Keenum was a guy that got paid too. So
yeah, no, absolutely. All right, some bad news, Reagan. We got to touch on it. Rondale Moore, we just spoke about him last week in the NFC South for the Falcons, kind of being that number 3 wide receiver, saying he's got to be healthy. Unfortunately, knee injury, out for the season today in practice. Not good for that Atlanta offense. They really need someone to step up in that wide receiver 3 role with a revamped offense. This is good if you already drafted and you have Darnell Mooney, but I don't know, man. This is not great for Atlanta.
yeah, and that's the messed up part about it is when we were doing just not even a week ago at this point, we were talking about the Falcons. We're like, yeah, like if Moore stays healthy, he could be a nice piece. But sure enough, just a guy that struggled with injuries throughout his career, just dealing with another injury. He could have been a very cool chess piece for that team, but now they're going to turn to Drake London more, and obviously Darnell Mooney and Kaderil Hodges. I mean, he's a guy that you could probably scoop up late in best balls. That's very interesting to me, just because he will cost you your last pick. You'll get him for cheap, and now he's going to be thrusted into that number 3 role there, and it's an interesting number 3 role with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. It ain't no Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke. So I expect this offense to be way more high powered and putting up a lot of points. And we already highlighted it. The defense sucks. It's not a good defense. They just lost guys. They didn't add guys. So it's going to be bleeding points. So
yeah, absolutely. I like Rondale Moore a lot as a player. Really fun at Purdue. When we're talking about staying healthy, it's like, okay, hamstring issues, this and that. I mean, these things with a knee out for the season, just freak accidents. So, nothing like he can't, like, I wouldn't put this in the same category as his previous injuries, but yeah, he would have been a fun piece, that jet sweep kind of guy, a lot of quick routes, screens, and working in space. But fortunately, Atlanta's going to have to find another replacement. Another wide receiver injury on a team that we are going to discuss tonight. Josh Downs out 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Not ideal. Downs was pretty solid as a rookie for the Colts, working out of the slot. Would have went really nicely with Pittman and AD Mitchell, but unfortunately for Colts fans, that might have to wait, and he could miss the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that one sucks because obviously they took him in the second round. One of the top receivers. I know a lot of people had him mocked as a first rounder too. So, I would have been excited to see. Or no, wait, what am I talking about? Why was I just no, he was getting like 2 years ago. He was getting some first round looks. I mean, he definitely showed some flashes. Because he ended up being a third round pick. I believe.
No, he was second. He was second.
Was he?
UNC. Yeah.
At a UNC, yeah, because he was obviously most of his production came from Drake May's really good season the year before he got drafted.
Yeah.
And he showed a lot of flashes last year, obviously with mainly with Gardner Minshew, because obviously Anthony Richardson went down so early. But that's a big blow. But obviously you paid Michael Pittman, and that's why you drafted Adonai Mitchell or Adonai Mitchell. Sorry. I know you're wearing your what is that? A Tennessee
Texas.
or Texas hat?
Texas. Welcome, baby.
Horns down.
Welcome horns.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I didn't even go to a big college, so I don't, I guess I could do the same thing. 1 week I'm wearing a Gators hat, the next week I'm wearing a different SEC hat. Maybe I'll just become a Big Ten fan this year if you're an SEC fan. It'll just be like we could just be fans of conferences at this point,
Yeah, the hair was a mess. I had to put on the hat, and I haven't worn the Texas hat in a while, so I wear the Texas hat.
Yeah. Well, if you're a Texas fan now, I'm down to. I'll have your Gators hat if that works.
I'm not a Texas fan. I just root for them. Neutral games. If they played the Gators, I'd root for the Gators. If they played if either of those two teams played Sparty, I'd root for Sparty.
Okay. I mean, I just have like one favorite team, but cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but it'll be interesting. But we'll get into the Colts a little bit more later, obviously.
Yep.
This is the AFC South Division breakdown pod, so
We absolutely will. Garrett, would you like to hop on the stage, my friend? Garrett was at Jets Commanders joint practice today, won some tickets for free on a Twitter giveaway.
oh,
Yes,
hey,
sir.
handsome.
Got some
Hey,
great
handsome.
videos, a nice one
Hey,
of Garrett
brother.
Wilson with a nice catch. And currently, Garrett's videos are blowing up on Twitter as we're on the podcast right now.
And
So,
TikTok,
Garrett,
and
Let's go.
TikTok.
and TikTok. So if you're not following, check us out on TikTok and Twitter. Garrett, how was the joint practice? Curious, how did the Jets look as a whole? And then your thoughts on Jaden Daniels going against that vaunted Jets defense.
Yeah, man, it was awesome being out there. Key takeaways from it. So all day long it's raining. It's bad. It's like a monsoon. The whole field is soaked. So because of that, unfortunately, we didn't see Aaron Rodgers today. That was on call by Robert Saleh. Apparently, he wanted to be out there, but they're not playing any risk, and I don't blame them, honestly. He's, from all accounts, he's been lighting it up in camp. Why throw him out there in like shitty weather against a team you don't really know? Like there's a lot of late hits. You probably saw from the Giants scrimmage the other day too. Like it gets scrappy out there. You can't take any risks.
$200K each, the Giants and the Lions from that.
There was many of them there too. Not really fights, but it was getting chippy out there, which you love to see. Yeah, it was cool seeing them come in. Like you said, Garrett Wilson was the star of the day. Him and Forbes had some awesome battles. For you Washington fans out there, I know your buddy from school is a big Washington fan.
Walmart,
he was getting cooked. It was
Forbes got cooked all last year, so I'm not surprised that Garrett Wilson took him to town.
He's just as skinny as those pictures make him look. Like he is very thin. It's hard to like imagine them taking him over Christian Gonzalez.
He's got that Garrett Losher physique.
Yeah, I could probably take him. No, but it's not all doom and gloom for him. He had 2 back-to-back nice pass breakups on flat routes, but they were both against Alan Lazard, so who knows? We don't really know what
Hey, he's a good blocker. Give him his credit.
The OG fans will know. Like building your perfect receiver last year, Reagan's like, I want Alan Lazard's blocking.
I mean, hey,
I'll give you that. That's about all I'll give you with Lazard.
It was funny also, real quick. I saw on like our social media, all the Commanders fans are like on that one clip, or between the 2 clips you posted, one of them they keep going in this. They're like freaking out because I guess they're saying he only had 25 yards passing Jaden Daniels in the whole scrimmage, and they're all saying they're like, oh, in that one clip he had 25. And most of the
thing about it is though, in that clip, you can't tell, but that play got called back. There was like an offensive jump start or something. But going into Jaden Daniels, I mean, I got to see his like 11-on-11 team drills where he didn't look all that great. I mean, obviously this is his first time going against a different defense besides his own. And like, it was a messy day. Like balls were getting dropped left and right, but so you can't put too much stake into how he looked, but he really only had one like nice throw, but even then it was thrown into triple coverage and Ertz made a nice play on it. But he didn't throw any interceptions. He kept the ball in play.
I heard Sauce said that he was a good player, that he played well.
Yeah, Sauce, I had some praise for him. He thinks he's going to be a great player. Same with Saleh, said that he was talking to their coaches and they're talking a big game about him. And how could you not? He's coming off the Heisman Trophy. So we'll see with him. It was tough to really get a good gauge on him. I mean, it was more of a day for the Jets, to be honest. We scored multiple times in goal line. Breece Hall had a nice 20-yard run. He's about to be a boom in fantasy. He's going to go crazy.
Doom, all boom, baby.
All boom with him. I mean, other key parts about the Commanders, I'd say their interior D-line looked great, obviously, with like Payne and
Allen.
I'm drawing a blank. Allen. They got in. They caused some havoc. Even the guys behind them were getting in a lot. I mean, that's a bit of a worry with the Jets. It's like, because when Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, who are old, and obviously you don't want to play them a lot in something like this, when they weren't in there, like they were kind of getting exposed a little bit. Like there was some quick pressure coming in. That's a big thing for the Jets this year. Is if their O-line doesn't get together and like start gluing soon, like this Week 1 game against the Niners could get ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. Niners definitely have a better defensive line than the Commanders. Commanders a lot of pass rushers on the edge the offseason, so not ideal.
It was good to see Tyrod out there playing well because who knows if we'll need him or not, but having like a top 5 backup quarterback, I'll say,
Yeah, I mean, he might be number one.
Yeah, I mean, having someone like that is awesome. We'll see how much we see him in the preseason. To be honest, he'll have to probably start because we don't. The other arm we have right now is this kid named Peasley. I don't even know what college he went to.
Well, yeah,
but
because Jordan Travis is rehabbing still.
yeah, he was walking around. It was actually good. He was in full pads, but obviously he didn't go out there at all. But it was cool to see him because he could potentially be our future. It just sucks that we can't see him in the preseason because of his injury. But yeah, it was good being out there.
Good day, man.
Glad
I've
to
been
give
to
you
Giants
this
training camp. Yeah, we appreciate the scoop, G. Appreciate the film we got blown up on Twitter.
Yes,
I've been at Giants camp before. It is pretty fun. It's a cool atmosphere being there, watching them play. So,
yes,
all right,
go Jets.
Appreciate that, G. No, let's not go Jets, but appreciate that, G. Dave,
Wait,
get your ass in
why
here,
wouldn't
bro.
you say that?
Oh, come on, dude. Get out of here. Dave, get your ass in here, bro. We got for questions.
Boo. Yeah, let's hop into some questions. Let's start off with Hafe.
Yeah, Hafe. Yeah, Hafe submitted these last week thinking we were doing AFC South. We're doing NFC South.
Hey, nah, don't do him like that.
Hey,
He's just a true fan.
Hafe.
He was ready. He was ready
Hey,
a week earlier.
Yeah, I know. He jumped the gun a little bit, but then he got us questions, and I know he's been looking forward to us answering these for several days now.
Who do you believe emerges as wide receiver 2 for Indy? Pierce, Mitchell, or Downs?
So the Downs injury throws a little wrench in that. I don't think it's going to be Pierce. Pierce is more of a downfield threat. He's had a bit of a run. I'm not sold on Pierce as a long-term piece. I think he's more of a depth guy. I like Josh Downs a lot, particularly out of the slot, but I'm going to go with Mitchell because I think his skill set fits Anthony Richardson really well. That Richardson has a big arm and could push the ball downfield, and that was the name of Mitchell's game at Texas with his speed and long arms and long legs. So he was able to get downfield, make a lot of big plays for Texas. I'll get into some stats later about Mitchell that'll back that up. But yeah, I think Mitchell is going to emerge and become a really good target for Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to not say Josh Downs because he had really an underrated rookie year. Like, I'm sure most people, when I'm gonna say his stats right now, they're not even gonna realize like how good of a rookie year he had. I mean, he had 68 catches for 771 yards and 2 touchdowns. And for a guy that was a 3rd-round pick, those are pretty good numbers for a wide receiver too, especially in year 1. So the injury doesn't scare me at all. I mean, maybe he misses the first week, maybe 2 weeks of the season, but it's a long season. They probably will hold him out, I'd imagine, at least 1 or 2 weeks. But yeah, to me, he's the number 2. I'm not going to say Mitchell can't win it, but Downs is the guy that I want in fantasy. I mean, it scares me a little bit that most of that production came with Minshew, obviously, and Minshew and Richardson are completely different quarterbacks, but still the same offense with the same guy calling plays and the same head coach in Steichen. So we'll see what happens.
What does the carry percentages look like between Spears and Pollard?
50-50. Actually, nah, 55-45 Spears.
I actually think Pollard's going to have a bounce back season. I think I think the scheme that he's going to be in, although I'm worried about the offensive line, I think this scheme that he's in fits his skill set well, that running out of the gun more so. And also he was clearly held back by that tightrope surgery he got last year, the foot injury. He said he didn't feel like himself till week 11. So although he's in that high-powered Dallas offense, big down year, I don't know. I mean, Tajay Spears did show some good flashes as a rookie. I like Spears a lot coming out of Tulane. I think Spears is, I don't know. They kind of have more similar skill sets. I think it's going to be Pollard high 50%. Not hitting 60, but I think it'll be over 55.
Even if Pollard does have the higher percentage, I mean, I still want Spears in fantasy. He's going to be the 3rd down back. He was very good at it last year with Derrick Henry with a lot of explosive catches out of the backfield. So he's the guy I want for fantasy. I think whether or not he's to start the year, because yeah, they gave Pollard the money. I think it's going to be very similar to the Miles Sanders situation where he's just cooked at this point. I think it's kind of crazy you're making excuses for Pollard when you were not. When Zeke wasn't good on the Cowboys and he was injured. Oh, okay. Well, Zeke's cooked. When Pollard, he is injured, so we'll give him a pass. Nah, bro. No, I'm not giving him a pass. And then look, Zeke was good on looked better on the Patriots last year with the worst offensive line. So yeah, I'm not saying things can't change, but I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Pollard till he proves maybe it was the injury, but
hey, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm saying exactly what he said. I was repeating his words. I'm not making excuses for him.
quote Tony Pollard.
I don't make excuses for Cowboys.
Well, now he's a Titan, so now you can make excuses. But I'd be interested to see how this offensive line looks. I mean, obviously you get Brian Callahan Jr., his dad, obviously longtime coach in this league.
Bill Callahan, one of the best in the league.
And I believe he is. I don't know why I said junior, but I believe he's on the staff as well. So I'm excited for that.
Line coach.
And with them obviously drafting Skoronski last year and then going out and getting J.C. Latham this year, it makes me excited. I mean, they're really trying to plug some holes here, and Cushenberry's not bad at center either. So
yeah, upgrade for sure.
I mean, they definitely made some moves to really invest in the offensive line. So I'm excited for this, and hopefully Levis can take a big jump in year 2. But we'll get into that more later. But Spears is a guy for fantasy and dynasty, and best ball, and any platform.
Who finishes as wide receiver 1 for each of the 4 teams?
Pittman.
Okay. Let's start with Houston. Who you got for Houston? That's a tough one.
Nico.
I'm going to go Nico as well. He's already got the established connection with CJ Stroud, that big breakout year last year. Also, I'm worried about how Diggs is going to fit into that locker room.
I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that at all. I just think Diggs is on the decline, and I think Nico, I mean, he went off last year. He had almost I was looking today. He was 3 yards short of 1,300 in 15 games, 8 touchdowns, and I think 80 or 90 catches. I mean, the dude had a great season. So I think while Diggs will be a nice addition and he'll put up big numbers, I think Collins will still be the number 1. But it could be one of those offenses where both guys end the year as like putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. I mean, it could be similar to like the Peyton Manning Broncos year where Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas were both very relevant for fantasy. So,
or even last year with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, both of them would just alternate, dropping 150.
I mean, yeah, but I just meant like for like a long-term perspective. But yeah.
All right, Jags, who do you got?
I'll go with I mean, I just don't see Gabe Davis like being more than like what he was in Buffalo, where it's like he explodes one week and then he's just a ghost, like
very good red zone
before,
threat.
like boo, like that's Gabe Davis most weeks.
Yeah.
He's a ghost. And then Brian Thomas, I mean, while he's very talented, I don't know. He hasn't been established. Obviously, Parker Washington's still there as well. Jake Shake and Bake Sky. But no, in all seriousness, it's Christian Kirk. And then for the Colts, we don't really need to get into too much detail. It's Michael Pittman.
It's Michael Pittman, unless A.D. Mitchell has a crazy rookie year, but I'm going to go Pittman.
I don't think so. I don't see how, like, he would have to have like an insane year because, like, think about how good of a year Pittman had last year.
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley is going to be that number 1 guy for Tennessee over DeAndre Hopkins when he returns from injury.
I don't know, because it really depends how long. Like, is this question like more fantasy oriented or just?
Yeah, it's a fantasy question.
Okay, so I'm going with Hopkins still. Like, while Ridley maybe will finish with more points, just because I don't know how many games Hopkins will miss. I'm assuming they're going to ease him in really slowly at his age, but I think on points per game basis, Hopkins will end the year with more than Ridley. So,
all right, Drock, what do we got next, dude? What are you waiting for?
As much as I love staring at you guys.
Sometimes y'all get pissed off at me for cutting you off short, so I'm gonna.
No. I'm not giving you shit. I like to look at your pretty eyes.
This big forehead. All right. Start, trade, cut. Hopkins, Kirk, and Diggs.
Oh, I'm going to keep Diggs. I'm going to trade Kirk, and I'll cut Hopkins.
I agree. I was wishing you were going to say Hopkins trade, but I'm going to.
It's hard to just because of the age of Hopkins, and like we've seen what Kirk was doing with Lawrence all season last year. So I expect him to just return to that number 1 role where Hopkins, like, we're already having that debate. He's on the back end of his career. Injuries are a concern. Also, how good will Tennessee be? Where Jacksonville, at least Lawrence, like, while last year was a big down year, and we can get into that more later, we know there's still going to be a good offense, or at least a good fantasy offense, where Lawrence will keep his receivers relevant. Where Levis, like, I'm hoping he takes a big jump in year 2. I think he has the potential to, but until he does it, you can't just bank on that happening.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Quarterback positions are very important here. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence over Will Levis in that offense. Also, they're both kind of – I mean, I think Tennessee is more of a crowded wide receiver room as well, with Boyd and Calvin Ridley in the mix. So I'm going to go with the same order you did, my friend.
Smart. All right, now 2 pick'ems. One of them, Ridley or B. Thomas?
I'm gonna go Ridley. Yeah, Ridley.
I will go with Brian Thomas off of the potential. I don't know, man. Like Ridley had 1,000 yards last year, but it wasn't pretty. I mean, he had some boom weeks, and then there were some weeks where
A
he
lot of
did the
drops.
disappearing act, a lot of drops. But I don't know, man. I'm just more excited for the younger guy. That obviously the Jaguars took him in the first round. You know, I'm really excited for the potential of Brian Thomas. So I'm gonna go with him on this.
Next one, Downs or Dell?
I'm going Dell for sure.
I think I might go Downs because of the fact that there's just so many mouths to feud in Houston, and like Nico Collins is better than Tank Dell, and obviously Stephon Diggs is, and you still got Dalton Schultz there. They just got Joe Mixon, so they didn't trade for him to not be involved. So it's just like one of those things where, yes, Tank Dell is definitely better than Downs, but for fantasy and just taking out NFL purposes, I don't know, man. Downs may end up having a better season because there's just way too many mouths to feed. And I like the potential for targets that Downs has versus Tank Dell, where I mean, obviously if an injury happens, but I'm not gonna bank on that. It's just, to me, he's the fourth option on that team because I put Schultz over Dell in terms of options there. Because Schultz had a good big year last year too. Let's not forget.
Oh, I'm not putting Schultz over Tank Dell. I mean, Tank Dell was CJ Stroud's handpicked wide receiver in the draft. He told him to go get him. I'm taking Tank Dell over Schultz. And I just think Tank Dell's a better player than Downs. And I think it's going to be
I agreed with you on that. I agreed with he's a better player, but this has nothing to do with who's the better player.
But they're both wide receiver 3/2s and playing from the slot.
No, there's no /2. I would say for a fact Dell is 3. I don't know how. I don't think after 1 year of like a half a season before he went down with great production, you can put him over Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs is already pushing for that number 1-2 role.
No. I meant for Downs. If you could call him the 2 or the 3. I didn't say Tank Dell's not the 2.
Oh,
he's a 3.
Okay.
Yeah. That was more for Downs.
Like,
that was for
right,
Downs.
buddy.
That was for Downs.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Let's hop to Austie.
Hey, bud.
Austie's got 2 questions for us. Is CJ Stroud the best quarterback in the AFC South?
Yeah.
I mean, he had a better year last year than Trevor Lawrence has had in his first 3 years. So, yeah,
that would be the only one you could debate is him versus Lawrence, because you're not going to say Levis and Richardson played 2.5 games.
4 games.
Oh, is it 4? Yeah. So, I mean, I can't even make a case for Lawrence. Lawrence had such a step back last year, and we can get into that more later, but he just, from his sophomore year, he took a step back.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next one. Are the Texans the clear-cut winner of the AFC South this year? And
No.
who are their biggest threats?
The Colts and the Jaguars. I think the Titans are clearly the worst team in the division, although I don't think the Titans are going to be terrible.
I don't know if they're clearly the worst.
I think they're definitely the worst.
I don't know. I wouldn't say they're clearly the worst, but I think any of these teams can win it. I think this is.
Vegas says they're clearly the worst. Texans win total 9.5. Jags win total 8.5. Colts win total 8.5. Titans 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go fully off of what Vegas says. I get that, like they're implying that, but in my books, like I don't think the gap is that big that I could say for certain. I think you could make a case that the Colts are worse in certain spots. I mean, we're putting a lot of faith in the Anthony Richardson after a 4-game sample size last year that they're going to return to that. But that's getting a little off topic.
Yeah, but they won 9 games with Gardner Minshew.
Okay.
So, I mean, Minshew was like 2-10 as a starter before he took over the Colts role of the last season or two. So, yeah, I think I don't want to spoil it, but I have the Colts winning the division. I spoiled it. Oops.
That's funny. I have the Colts coming in dead last.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but in a tie with the Titans. But I'm not.
I have the Colts winning the division in a tie with Houston. So that is your biggest threat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I have Houston. Well, I'll get into it later. I have them winning it, but I still think this division's wide open. I think you could make a case for all 4 teams to win the division. I think this is probably one of the most wide open divisions in football. I think a lot of people are going to come in being like, "Oh, CJ Stroud, like it's going to happen." And there's still a world where, he doesn't light up the world. Like teams will adjust, teams will figure him out. I mean, we see quarterbacks struggle in year 2. It's not all like, it's not like he's just going to come in and it's going to be 40 touchdowns and fucking 5 interceptions. I'd imagine there'll be more of a slump and teams will adjust from last year.
All right, let's hop to Jerry Cramps. Call your shot on which player leads the Texans in touchdowns, receptions, and yards. It can obviously be different players.
So,
receptions,
touchdowns,
Nico. Touchdowns, Diggs. What was the last one? Yards?
Yards, yeah.
Nico.
Receptions, Diggs. Yards, Nico. Touchdowns, Schultz.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I like that one. That's a good one, Crampy.
That is a good one. We haven't gotten that one yet. That's a good question.
And our last question of the night. When Aiyuk gets traded, is Deebo a top 15 pick?
For fantasy,
Fantasy.
Wait, top 15 pick as a in total,
general,
in general.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends because obviously, if they don't bring anyone else in, I almost have to say because they're just gonna, he's gonna be. It's just one less mouth to feed. I would say no.
I'm not taking him top 15. I'm not taking over a guy like, I don't know, Bijan Robinson. Would you take him over Jahmyr Gibbs?
No,
I'm not taking over Gibbs. I'm not taking over Breece Hall. I'm not taking over McCaffrey. I'm not taking over Jefferson. I'm not taking over Lamb. I'm not taking over Chase.
He's definitely I think you could say top. He's definitely okay. I would say he is a second round pick. If that happens.
I'm going back end of round 2, top of round 3. I'm not saying he's going to go.
Well, I wonder where I am curious. Where is he going now?
Yeah, what's his ADP?
I can look right now
his ADP right now isn't going to hold because Aiyuk is technically still in the team. Like, if it's going to shift, it's shifting now, the last 2 days.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what, because ESPN's got these cool new. I'll just hop in a practice draft. Real quick.
I'm also worried about.
Cool
let's not act like Deebo hasn't had injury problems throughout his entire career. Like, him playing a full season just seems unlikely to me.
Yeah. Right now they have Deebo as. Aiyuk's 36. Deebo is 46. So if Aiyuk were to leave, I think he would get into that. Top
He's not
24.
jumping 30 spots, though.
He might get in there because, Pittman's top 24. I'd probably take him over Pittman. Then you got, Olave, Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, Drake London, Joe Mixon. Some of those guys, I think I'd take because we've seen Deebo be a top 5 fantasy player before.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was before McCaffrey, and he was getting a lot of rushing work. But I don't know, man. Crampy, you bring up a good point. Top 15, no. Top 24, yes, I say.
I agree. Also, all those names you just listed, Reagan, I'd take him over all of those guys if Aiyuk were to get traded.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why I'm saying that too.
All right, brother. You ready to roll? Talk some Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, man. We might as well, right?
Yeah. Titans finished last year in the division, 6-11 record. Their win total this year is set at 6.5. Very close to what it was last year. Some key losses. This team is very reshaped going into 2024. Derrick Henry, their guy for 8 years, gone. Baltimore. Ryan Tannehill, Azeez Al-Shaair, Danico Autry, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Christian Fulton, a lot of players, but they did bring in a lot of talent. Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, Lloyd Cushenberry, Chidobe Awuzie, Kenneth Murray, Tony Pollard, Tyler Boyd. Now, usually when you get a team like this that brings in a ton of free agents, there's some initial success, and then it kind of falters. I'm curious your thoughts on the Titans, Reagan. Where do you have them ranking in the division? How many wins? I know this was your team last year. They let you down a little bit. Are you optimistic again heading into 2024?
I got them going 7-10. I will say, I'm optimistic in the sense I did throw some money on them to win the division. That's me being bold, courageous, ferocious. But no, from being in a more I guess you could say down to earth kind of realistic type of guy, I have them going in 7-10. I think the team improves. I think there's still a lot of holes on the defense. You just highlighted 2 of their biggest losses this year went over to Houston, which we'll get into more of that later.
Yeah.
You obviously get Simmons, you got Sneed, so that's huge, but there's still a lot of holes on this defense. And while you did fix the offense, I'm excited for J.C. Latham. I think he'll pair nicely with Skoronski, and Cushenberry should be good. So you have 3 out of your 5 should be solidified. The Will Levis is such a question mark here. He showed a lot of flashes. He's obviously a big guy with a big arm, so there's a lot of potential there. But And it helps that you go out and get Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley. And obviously, Okonkwo is coming into year 3 in this system. I like him a lot. He's very dynamic. And the running backs, obviously, Tajay Spears, who I talked about before, I'm excited for. And Pollard, I mean, while I don't think he's got a ton left in the tank, I mean, he's still better than just rolling with Spears and one of the other guys you drafted. So, I mean, they definitely went out and got a lot of guys. I just think there's still too many holes on this team for them to really compete in this division. I think they can win a couple division games and definitely be in the thick of things. I don't think it's going to be the trade deadline and they're like, we're selling, sell, we're out. I definitely think they'll be in it till at least December. I just don't know if they have enough. And it really comes down to Will Levis. And I'm just not fully sold on him. I can see the potential. And he's a guy I'm trying to get in Dynasty. I've taken him in a couple best ball drafts super late in the off chance that, hey, maybe he takes a big year 2 jump. And then I got this guy in the last round or second to last round as my number 2, number 3 quarterback. And now I can plug him in and he's putting up big weeks. Because I look at that Miami game he had where he had like 2 rushing touchdowns, had a ton of yards and went into Miami and beat him. So we've seen him beat some good teams, but I don't know. But I am excited for Callahan as well.
Wow, I agree. I also have him at 7-10. I think they're improved on paper. Sharp predicts them to have the 6th most difficult schedule this season, which is not ideal for Will Levis. Offensively, I like the Latham pick. Like, it was so obvious they were going to go tackle, but there's just like, I know it's scout the player, not the helmet, but there's just such a bad track record of Alabama tackles panning out. Like, the only one I could say off the top of my head that has lived up to it is Cam Robinson, but still he got picked really early and had some injury concerns. So I hope that Latham develops into that guy, but still rookie left tackle is just not ideal for a young quarterback. I like Skoronski. Cushenberry was ranked as the 10th best center in the league, according to Pro Football Focus last year, was 3rd in pass pro. That's huge for Will Levis' development. Clearly their additions show they're trying to aid Levis's development, adding all those receivers. Levis had the lowest completion rate in the league last year, but a problem with that was that he was pushing the ball downfield a ridiculous amount, just chucking deep balls to DeAndre Hopkins. Like his first game, I think he had 4 touchdown passes, was just chucking it deep. So I'm not sold on Levis. I think he's a little sporadic. I think he's inaccurate. We touched on Tony Pollard earlier. I think he has a decently bounce back season. I don't think he's going to be elite by any stretch of the means, but I think he'll be better than when he was last year. Treylon Burks just seems like a waste of a pick. You traded A.J. Brown, who has been a top 5 to 7 receiver over the last 2 years. You use that pick on Burks, and now you just sign guys, traded for guys over him. So not ideal offensively. You know, you lose your identity with Derrick Henry. I don't love this offense, to be honest with you. I do think the receivers will be fine, will help Levis. I think Levis will be better than last year, but I think they're going to go at the end of the season and be like, all right, we don't think we have our guy long-term. Defensively, really not a great front. They're kind of lacking edge rushers. Simmons was good last year, not for his standards, though. I mean, he had 13 run stuffs, 12.8% pressure rate, which is good from the interior, but we've seen Simmons be better, so a bounce back would be big for this defense. Harold Landry, solid, had 10.5 sacks last year. Outside of him, though, they're missing some talent. I mean, they brought over Kenneth Murray from the Chargers, who got picked in the first round. Big shoes to fill with Azeez Al-Shaair leaving and going to Houston, who led the team in tackles last year. So big addition for Houston, big loss for Tennessee, and you're taking Murray, who never lived up to his draft status in L.A., and that's a whole nother conversation. I don't believe in taking linebackers in the first round of the draft, but neither here nor there. I love the secondary, though. L'Jarius Sneed, best season of his career last year with the Chiefs, all-pro player. How we transition to a new scheme to be determined, but I like him a lot. Awuzie has looked really good for Cincinnati. Last year, he was not good, but the 3 years before, he was really good. So their safeties are fine. Hooker's solid. Molden's not that good. He's kind of liability. I don't know. They drafted T'Vondre Sweat, the defensive tackle out of Texas in the second round, who weighed in at 366 pounds of the combine. So you hope he can develop into a big run stuffer. He's shown it. He can pass rush from the interior given his size, but he did have that DUI before the draft. Not ideal. He's going to have to get in better shape. Ultimately, I think it's a better roster on paper than it was last year. Just Will Levis is dragging him down for me. 7-10. I think they're finishing last in the division once again this year.
Now, my question for you is where do you see, what do you project for Will Levis in year 2? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to prove that he's not the starter and Tennessee's going to be drafting someone next year? Is he going to prove enough to keep the job? What do you see?
I think I think it's been one of those situations where it's like, we're not sold he's the franchise guy, but he wasn't terrible. But also, what are their alternatives? Like, because next year's
if they
not
go 7-10, you'd imagine they'd have
they're picking around. Yeah, they could, but it's not a great quarterback class. So it's like, okay, now you're in the situation where you're like, okay, did we think Levis was a better prospect coming out than a Shedeur Sanders or a Carson Beck? If even they fall that far, just because quarterbacks always get driven up the board. Like, I don't know. Like maybe they roll with Levis another year after this if he plays like I expect him to. He's just, I just think he's inaccurate. I think he's a little sporadic. I think he's still going to struggle. That right side of the offensive line is still really bad. You're relying a lot on a rookie left tackle. Levis under pressure is not what you want to see, but I think his stats will certainly be better because his wide receiver room's a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see the floor for him being a guy that's not starting next year, like a guy that maybe even gets benched mid-season. I think his ceiling is he really becomes the guy that we saw in college, the reason why he was getting talked about as a first-round pick, even though he did fall into the second round, the guy that's got this big arm, very big quarterback that can do it. And these weapons are a huge addition for him. And he leads Tennessee to maybe not the division title, but somehow, some way they sneak into the playoffs. And it's because of Will Levis. So I'd say that's his ceiling. I definitely think he has the potential to be a top 15, top 12 fantasy quarterback. Probably not.
You think he'd be a QB1?
I think
no way he's a QB1.
I think back end, just because of like the arm talent and the fact that he does have a little bit of rushing upside with that big frame, that he might be able to run a few in, get some QB sneaks, and really push it up by some rushing touchdowns. But that would be in the perfect storm that he would end up being like a back end quarterback one, like not like one of those guys that you can start on bye weeks and stuff, or hey, maybe I got a Matt Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers or some of those guys that are back end QB1s, and I like the matchup better for Will Levis. Let me play him over them. Type of guy.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's going to be in the 20s ranked.
I mean, it's still, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
He's going to be in the 20s.
Or is that his ceiling?
No, I'm not saying it's a ceiling. That's realistically. I think his ceiling is like QB 16. I think it's a ceiling.
I mean, that's kind of what I said. Back end quarterback 1, low end quarterback 2. Okay. If his ceiling's 16, then you agree with me that he's a guy you can start in bye weeks. And
back end quarterback 1 is back end quarterback 1 is like 10 to 12.
Yeah, back end quarterback 1, but like if you're saying he's 16, that's a guy you can play in bye weeks, or if you like the matchup better, you might play him over.
But
odds are, if he's 16, he's probably on your roster because you have another quarterback that's older that like, yeah, you're starting, but like you're looking for a guy with that high upside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started him last year in the fantasy championship. He got me -2 and got hurt, so I don't know. It's kind of got to. I'm not the biggest Will Levis fan.
Did you win your championship?
Oh yeah, I did. Thanks to Isaiah Likely, Devontae Adams. Shout out. And Brees Hall.
That's hilarious. You could have started me. You could have started Drock. You could have started yourself. We would have gotten more points.
I could have put Drock's bald ass in at quarterback super flex, and I would have scored more points.
Oh man!
All right, Reagan. Let's move on to the Colts.
Wait.
Oh, whoa! That's right. We forgot this last time.
Again.
We forgot this last time. Drock's pissed. All right.
It's funny that
we'll let Drock say his lock, and then we'll get into our MVPs and stuff for this game. Drock, what's your lock?
Kind of funny that we're talking and shitting on Will Levis. Drock's lock is Will Levis most regular season interception thrown at plus 1,000.
Oh, I like that. That's juicy.
He's the fourth, I guess, favorited quarterback to throw
who's ahead of him?
Interceptions in the league. So plus 1,000 is really not that bad. So
who's ahead of him?
I think Josh Allen.
Yeah, makes sense.
Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense too, and from the aspect that obviously they are. What was I going to say? They're rookies. They're going to make a lot of mistakes, and then the Josh Allen thing makes sense. I mean, for as talented as he is, the guy freaking bleeds interception. I mean, he just is a turnover machine. But you live with it because of how talented he is.
Yep.
But let's get into our MVPs of the team. I mean, for me, it would probably be Jeffrey Simmons, just returning to that all-pro form, a guy that should be in that debate of the number one guy with Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, and Dexter Lawrence. I mean, we've seen him do that. So it would be him returning to that form and really stabilizing the defense, being the run stopper he is, and then, helping Tennessee, because that's my bigger concern is the defense right now. So if they can play at least at middle of the pack and give this team a chance to win games where they don't have to rely on Will Levis to put up 20-plus points in each game to even have a chance to win, that would be huge. I mean, I guess it's more of an X factor, but he would be my MVP because he's their best player.
All right. You're Depoy as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got Simmons as Depoy. I went a different route for MVP. I went Calvin Ridley.
Wow.
I think Calvin Ridley is the guy that can unlock Will Levis. And I think if Calvin Ridley eclipses 1,000 yards with Will Levis, it really aids his development, which is why I think he's the most valuable to this team, because this team goes where Will Levis goes. If Will Levis struggles, if he's being pressured, if he turns the ball over, they're not going to win a lot of games. If Will Levis takes that next step, I think Calvin Ridley's a monster piece of that, and he's the MVP. You like that call?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting one, but I can see where you were talking about there.
X Factor, Reagan, go.
Brian Callahan is my X Factor because he got this. The big reason he got this job was for his work as the OC for the Bengals last year. He made Jake Browning look like basically a slight downgrade from Joe Burrow. Slight downgrade. So a lot of it, and that was the reason he got the job, because of the good work he did there. They had a winning record with him. They were still competing till the end. The Bengals finished the season with a winning record. And if you told me that when they were 5-5 and they lost Joe Burrow, that they'd still end the season with a winning record and almost make the playoffs, I'd have been like, you're crazy.
Yep.
But he made Jake Browning look like a legit NFL quarterback. So he is my X factor here. Is he the quarterback whisperer that can figure out Will Levis and help him take that second step or that year 2 jump? Can he put it all together? I mean, they obviously went out and got the weapons. He brought Tyler Boyd over with him as well. They have 3 good wide receivers. You got Chikakonkwo. You got the 2 running backs in Pollard and Spears. You drafted J.C. Latham. You took Skoronski in the first round. You get Cushenberry. So this offense got a lot of weapons. I mean, nobody's really elite on this team, but, you have a good team, or a good enough team. So he's my X factor. Can he put it all together and mastermind it and put this team in a good spot? Because think about it. Mike Vrabel also got fired for this guy. And a lot of people question that because it was a down year, but the guys were always playing well. And Mike Vrabel had the Titans in the playoffs pretty much every year and always competing at a high level. It always seemed like they were the underdog by a couple points on a Monday night, a Sunday night, a Thursday night football game against the Chiefs or the Bills. And they would just pull it out in a Derrick Henry type running game fashion. So it'll be interesting to see if Callahan can have this team in a spot to win this year.
Yeah, I like that call. I mean, also getting Bill Callahan, his father, to coach the offensive line that was 30th in pressure rate allowed last season and 28th in yards allowed before contact on running back runs is also an addition that's huge for that team. So I like it. The Callahan boys. My X factor, J.C. Latham, the rookie left tackle. Can you protect Will Levis's blind side and allow him to read the defense and develop mentally processing? If Latham struggles really bad out of the gate, they really don't have any other viable options. It's a team that desperately needs help along the offensive line. We touched on it last year before the season. I was like, I'm trading Derrick Henry in my leagues because I hate this offensive line. Latham is such a big X factor for me. Again, like Calvin Ridley, just to help Will Levis. All right, rookie of the year. I'm going Latham. Just touched on it. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Latham as well. I mean, obviously, it was kind of questioned, that pick. And I know the Chargers are even reports that they may take him in at 5, but out of all the offensive linemen, he was one of the biggest question marks. And I was kind of shocked they took him at 7. I don't think it's a bad pick. I think they definitely should have gone offensive line. I think they're really hoping for Joe Alt to fall to 7. Obviously, he didn't. Yeah. I didn't expect him to with Harbaugh and his coaching style, but he's the biggest question mark. But he's the guy that they put the capital in, and some would say reached on. But you know what? He's clearly Callahan's guy. You would think the father was in his ear saying, we got to go get this guy, being the offensive line coach. So I think he'll be coached up well, and I'm excited for what he can do. He may end up being the best tackle in the draft, at least in year 1.
Yeah, it's a good point, though. Bill's definitely in his ear. Like, I like Latham a lot. All right, the Indianapolis Colts, Reagan. Last season, 9-8. We're in it till the final week, potential wild card berth, or to win the division. The Colts have an 8.5 win total this year. Not a lot of key losses. I mean, they lost Gardner Minshew and Zach Moss. Key adds Raekwon Davis, Joe Flacco, kind of running the band back. With Shane Steichen leading the charge. Anthony Richardson being back and healthy. How will he look after only playing 4 games last year, but showing a ton of upside? Reagan, where do you have the Colts? You mentioned earlier tied for last. I'm assuming that means 7-10.
That does. You're a smart man. Way to use context clues.
Math. Context.
And listening, reading and math. My man is good like that. well-rounded package. But yeah, I'm not high on the Colts this year, man. Like I feel like a lot of it was just the perfect storm for them last year. I mean, they had some big upset wins. One that comes to mind, I believe, did they not beat the Ravens? Was that not one of the? Yeah, they did. Early on, they beat the Ravens. That was one of their big upset wins where it's like, whoa, is this team legit? I mean, I'm not going to knock Anthony Richardson because he was injured, but I'm not fully buying into it. I mean, you would think he would be better than Gardner Minshew, but for me to sit here and be like, this team getting Anthony Richardson back, like, we really don't know much about him. Like, he could come out and be like a Will Levis and Bryce Young because honestly, in a sense, he redshirted his rookie year. I mean, it's not like, oh, can he take that year 2 jump? There's not a big sample size on him. So that could play into that could also play out well because there's not a lot of tape on him. A lot of people don't know what to expect. Obviously, his legs, he was crazy with them last year.
Yep.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor is still a big question mark. I mean, he finally got paid, but over the past 2 years with all this contract bullshit and the injuries, he hasn't looked like the MVP self he was when he went for over 1,800 rushing yards in 2021. So, I mean, if he can return to it, then I feel a little bit more confident. I like the wide receivers. The O-line's solid. I mean, the defense, obviously, Zaire Franklin's the stud, and then you got Buckner and Kwity Paye. I mean, the secondary's not terrible. It's just, I don't know. This team just doesn't have enough X factors for me that I could really see them making a playoff push. Like, I don't know. To me, like, Trevor Lawrence and a CJ Stroud in this division really and it really comes down to believing in the quarterback. And I just don't fully believe in Anthony Richardson. And I'm not hating on him, but until I see it, it's hard for me to put any stock in this team going anywhere. So that's kind of why I had him at 7-10. And, I mean, I do think Shane Steichen's a good coach. He definitely proved that. He was able to bring in a backup quarterback and have him one play away. I mean, whether or not, that was one of the most criticized play calls, but it hit his running back in the hand on the back shoulder. He catches that. We're looking at the Colts in a different light because they would have been in the playoffs.
100%. 100%.
So.
I got the Colts winning the division at 10-7. I'm a huge believer in Shane Steichen. Just look what happened with the Eagles offense last year when he left. Like, seriously, if you look at the splits for the Colts offense 2022 to 2023, and then the Eagles 22 to 2023, particularly on the ground, it was crazy. It was crazy. They played the most difficult schedule of run defenses last year and the second most difficult schedule of defenses in totality, according to Sharp. And Moss and Jonathan Taylor still 8. They still performed really well. So Shane Steichen is very good at scheming up ways to get yards. And I believe in Steichen as a coach. I think he's really going to help Anthony Richardson. I agree with you 100%. We haven't seen enough. And when he did play, he was not particularly accurate, especially down the field.
Only 59% completion rating.
Yeah, 59% completion rate was the second worst in the league before he got hurt. So not ideal.
84 attempts, so.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he did show that elite rushing threat. And particularly for fantasy football, I think Richardson's going to be a QB1 if he stays healthy. He was QB4 and QB2 in his first 2 games played. Then had 17 points, 2 rushing touchdowns before leaving that concussion the following week. So the boom is there, 100%. Great for fantasy.
Oh, and not sorry to cut you off, but I mean, he could easily be terrible for NFL. I think he could be a Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields. Yeah. I don't think anyone was ever being like, "Oh, this guy's good for the NFL." Like, he showed flashes, but I don't think anyone was sitting there and being like, "Yo, like, this guy is good for the NFL." Like, he was great for fantasy, like especially that one year where he won people championships and he ended, I think, as like a top 5 quarterback. But he was terrible for NFL standards. So I think regardless of Richardson, the rushing ability puts him he's a top 12 quarterback with top 5, even. He could be the number 1 fantasy quarterback, to be honest.
If he puts it all together.
And the team could still go 7-10. And I would they could miss the playoffs and look terrible all year, and he could still be healthy and be the number 1 fantasy quarterback. As crazy as that is, his rushing ability.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. The Colts are projected to face the 7th easiest schedule this year. I think that helps a lot. The fact that they won 9 games last year with Gardner Minshew running the squad just really has me optimistic on Shane Steichen as a coach and what this offense can be if Richardson can put it together. I like the offensive line a lot. Braden Smith and Bernard Raymond, both great at tackle last year. Smith had a career year. Will Fries, Cranford Cougar, put pancakes me in my sophomore year of high school.
I was going to say, bro, he pancaked the shit out of you.
Yeah, I ran a nice little B-gap blitz, and he just put 2 hands on me. I was down. I was a 170-pound kid, and Will Fries was going to Penn State, so I'm really not that upset about it. I think it's kind of cool.
I want to say, yeah. I mean, I don't think it would. I think same thing would happen now. I don't know if the weight has to matter. Like
100%.
you're still a what?
No, but just
210-pound kid now. You're still getting pancaked. I don't think your size.
No. Well, obviously, I'm still getting pancaked. I'm just putting the mental picture in the audience's brain. Little skinny me, 170 pounds, 16 years old, getting fucking destroyed by a Division I offensive lineman. But that's neither here nor there. JT was productive. He's got to stay healthy, though. I agree with you. He's got to stay healthy. I really want to see him be healthy for a full year again, like he was in 2021, because I think he can eat in this offense. Defensively, I don't love the defense. They played a lot of backups last year and rookies, right? So, like, when you look at it, who they actually played against, a lot of backups and rookies. So, I think the secondary is kind of cheeks. I like Buckner a lot. He's still a stud. He had 8 sacks, 5th in ESPN's pass rush win rate last year from the interior. 18 run stuff, 2nd best amongst defensive linemen. So, across the board, really big presence in the middle there. Grover Stewart, beast against the run. So, this is a team that's going to play well against the run. And you mentioned Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, both behind him. Those guys were eating. I mean, they got rid of Shaq Leonard for a reason. These two guys are studs in the run game. Speed is one of the best in the league at covering the pass from the linebacker position as well. Kwity Paye, 8.5 sacks. Dayo Adewale, 8 sacks. Samson Ebukam led the team with 9.5 sacks. So you have a lot of guys that are contributing there. I like the front certainly a lot more than secondary. Kenny Moore is pretty good in the slot. Juju Brents, they took in the 2nd round last year, was cheeks. So, I mean, I think Latu, adding him in the 1st round, he led Power 5 rushers with a 23.7% pressure rate. You know, I mean, they took him in the 1st round. A lot of rumors they want to move up Brock Bowers, but Latu should be a good piece in that front. Clearly, it's a team that is going to stop the run. Defensively, it's going to have to be on the secondary if they can hold up, because it could be Swiss cheese. I don't know. The draft class I do like, though. I like Latu. I like A.D. Mitchell. We touched on them earlier, so you know, we don't have to go through that too much. But, yeah, I'm optimistic for this team, given what they showed last year under Steichen. If Richardson can be healthy and put it together because he has all the physical tools, this team could be dangerous.
Yeah, it's just their first half of the year really scares me.
It is a very difficult
and
schedule.
And that was kind of my biggest thing is I think they're going to start the year out slow, and then do I have faith in Anthony Richardson that he has the confidence and can step up when they start out 2-5, 2-6, and their schedule gets easier? But, you know, he's a young guy, hasn't played a lot of football. Is he all of a sudden just going to go on a big winning streak and put him in playoff position? I don't think so. Because, I mean, let me just put it in perspective. I mean, they play the Texans, Packers, Bears, Steelers, Jaguars, Titans, Dolphins, Texans, Vikings, Bills, Jets, Lions. So yeah, there's not a lot of games for certain. I mean, it ends not too bad, because then they end the last 5 with the Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jaguars, where they realistically could go 5-0 in those games. But at that point, what does this team look like? I mean, if they're like 4-7, do we expect 4-7, or, you know, maybe even 5-6? Do we expect Anthony Richardson to go win all those games and put him in the playoffs? I don't. I think you have a lot of faith in him that he's going to win a lot of these tough games. I mean, it helps that a lot of their big tough games are at home. Like, they get the Dolphins, the Bills, Bears, Steelers, obviously one of their Texans games at home. So a lot of their tough games are at home. So that does help. But still, I think it's asking a lot of Anthony Richardson to win a lot of these tough matchups.
Yeah, I'm just a believer in Anthony Richardson, what he could show. I
can't even call you biased. You don't have your Gator hat on. Can't even call you biased.
No, you cannot call me unbiased. I do think that under Shane Steichen, he will flourish, though. I do. I really do. All right, Reagan, your MVP for the Colts.
Hey,
you can come in after.
He can give his lock.
I'll do it after.
He could have did it after. He just wanted to interrupt and get his dumb fucking bald head in here.
Oh, what is that? Oh, what did you win? How much money do we win?
400.
Hey!
Yeah, Dave just doesn't want to listen to us talk ball and, you know, maybe enhance his dumb little pigeon brain when it comes to football. He'd rather be on the slot machine, but it's fine.
Let's go.
You can wait for us to be done, Dave.
Is that going to the Valerie Fund, Dave? All of it?
What the hell, you selfish prick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, thank you guys to all who donated. I think our link ended today, correct?
August 9th. Is that today? No, it ends tomorrow. It ends tomorrow.
So you still have one more chance if you're listening to it. Or obviously you can go out on your own. But hey, we were able to raise 2.5K, so that's pretty freaking cool.
Pretty freaking cool, boys. All right.
2.9K now, Trock. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trock. MVP, Reagan.
Yeah, so my MVP for this team, I don't know, because I want to say it might just be Shane Steichen, man. It might just be the fact that
I love it. I love it.
It might just be Shane Steichen and like, hey, maybe this guy really is the real deal of a coach, and he's just going to scheme his guys in the best situation, because it's definitely something to be said that you're missing Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, and you put Gardner Minshew in, and you put Zach Moss in, and it looks like they're just as good as the guy that was in front of them before. So he might just be like that Kyle Shanahan type where he can just scheme in whoever, and the team's going to be good. So that's my MVP for this team. And I think he goes as far as his coaching.
I love it, Reagan. I love it. I'm going Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor can stay healthy for the full season, I think he can lead the league in rushing. And I like this offensive line. I like
a good pick as well.
I touched on it earlier. The scheming with Shane Steichen, feeding right off you, man. Jonathan Taylor, also with the threat of, instead of Gardner Minshew back there, the threat of having Anthony Richardson being able to pull the ball and run some bootlegs and, the play action off of that. I like Jonathan Taylor to eclipse 1,500 yards this year, barring injury.
Hey, man, I got him in Dynasty. I got him in a couple leagues, so I wouldn't complain with that.
X Factor. I got Richardson, man. I mean, come on. Yeah. Can he stay healthy? Can he live up to the potential, the physical tools? It's got to be Richardson.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Richardson. It's just such a small sample size, so there's so many variables here. But I think if he's terrible or worse than Minshew, I mean, how does this team even make the playoffs then? Because they were close with Minshew, so he's the biggest X factor. I don't think you could say anyone else.
Absolutely. Rookie of the year, Reagan.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Latu Latu. It's just a team that obviously last year, I believe you said Buckner was their highest sack guy, and that was only 8.5. So
No. They had a couple guys with 8. Their highest guy was Samson Ibukam, 9.5.
9.5. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, I think Latu Latu is going to be a guy that can plug right in. I mean, they didn't have a double-digit sack guy. Obviously, they had a lot of contributors, but nobody was that double-digit guy. So I think he can come in right away and potentially be that double-digit guy. So he's definitely a guy where, if you're betting, he's probably not worth it because of the odds. Like, they're giving him a lot of respect. It's really between him and, why am I blanking on the name from the kid that got drafted to Minnesota from Alabama? Dallas Turner, yes. It's really between those two are the heavy favorites, and that's because they're edge rushers. But I really do think he has the potential to be a 10-sack guy in year one.
I'm going to go A.D. Mitchell. I don't hate the Latu pick. I had Latu initially, but I switched it up because I'm like, you know what? They have a lot of guys that contribute. I think it's going to be more of a rotation where he's not an every down kind of guy. He's not getting north of 80%, 90% of snaps. So I'm going to go A.D. Mitchell. I think he could really blossom with Richardson, particularly down the field, and have a lot of big plays for this offense. I like that Pittman's across from him. He's not their number one guy, which is good as a rookie. I think Mitchell can really, really be good and get to that 800-yard mark with Anthony Richardson this year. Depoy, DeForest Buckner. Dude's a beast. Does it all. Run, pass. He's the heart of this defense. Do you disagree?
I don't disagree. I just think you can make a case for Zaire Franklin. I mean, the dude had 179 tackles last year, so I don't know if you could necessarily say Buckner's the heart of the defense.
Buckner's setting him up. He's setting him up.
He's half the heart of the defense. It's hard to call a guy when he has a teammate who had almost 200 tackles last year the heart of the team, because that was in 16 games. So I would say Zaire Franklin just because the dude's all over the field. He's a tackling machine. It is interesting that it used to be Shaq Leonard or whatever the hell his name is now. I don't know. He's out of the league. Didn't work out in Philly, whatever. But Zaire Franklin, he's that guy. He's a huge tackle machine. I mean, I think you can make a case for either him or Buckner. They're the clear-cut 1A, 1B of this defense. So I'm going with Franklin just because he is a machine when it comes to tackling.
Okay. Drock, get your ass in here. What's the Drock's locks for the Indianapolis Colts?
Latu to record 12-plus sacks, plus 650. That
12 sacks?
Yeah.
Wow. Plus 650.
Plus 650.
12 sacks as a rookie is legit. Like, that's difficult to do as a rookie.
I don't hate that either, because if you're going to bet on him rookie of the year, I think he's like plus 600 to win rookie of the year. So at that point, like, if you're going to win rookie of the year, you're probably going to get 12 sacks. And then that just eliminates all the other like bullshit that, hey, maybe freaking Dallas Turner went out and got 15, or one of the corners had like 7 or 8 picks. And it's like, shit, like this dude went off and had 12 sacks, but you eliminate all of that. So Dave, I don't hate that aspect. It sounds like you think this guy could win rookie of the year if you're betting on that.
I'm just saying, Drac did say it. He did say it.
whatever the hell that was. All right, let's move on, Reagan. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh my gosh.
9 wins last year, 9-8. Their win total this year, 8.5. Very similar. Some key losses: Calvin Ridley, Darius Williams, Rayshon Jenkins. Some key adds: Eric Armstead, Gabe Davis, Darnell Savage, Mitch Morse. This team started 8-3 last year. Trevor Lawrence battled a lot of injuries: knee, ankle, shoulder, concussion, and they faltered down the stretch.
Oh, yeah. One of the biggest choke jobs in a long time. And it's funny because they went from one extreme to the next, because the year prior, they went on a huge hot streak to sneak in, where last year they went on a huge cold streak to just get bounced in the last week of the season. So it's funny that they were on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I'd say Doug Peterson probably has one of the hottest seats this year. My prediction, they go 8-9. They miss the playoffs. Doug Peterson is, in fact, fired. Wow. And they leave it really having a lot of question marks about Trevor Lawrence. And they're like, hey, he's great, but is he ever going to be the guy that we drafted 1 overall that can get us to the Super Bowl? Because the
generational tag. He had the generational tag.
Yeah, he was getting a generational tag. The Andrew Luck, who never got it done, retired early tag. The Peyton Manning, who got it done tag. But I think they leave the season with a lot of question marks about the future of Trevor Lawrence. While we know he's a good quarterback, will he ever be that guy to get us to the next level? Not only to the playoffs, but at least to AFC championships, putting up MVP numbers, and potentially to the Super Bowl. And I think they don't. I have them going 8-9. I don't have a lot of belief in this team. I think that I'm not sold on the defense. While they got kind of similar to the Colts, they got some studs in there. I mean, you got a Louis Khan, big tackle guy. You got Josh Allen, the big sack guy, but I still think there's a lot of holes there. I don't mind the weapons. I don't mind them. I still don't love them. I mean, Brian Thomas, I'm glad they went out and got a wide receiver 1. You had to. But still, he wasn't even the wide receiver 1 in college. So what makes you think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in the NFL? Then Christian Kirk, how is he going to recover from the injury? Big question mark. Obviously, it was Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. Evan Ingram, Pro Bowl season, great year. Shout out to Charlie Everly's boy. He'll probably love this. They have the best long snapper in the league, so got to give the recognition to Ross Mastic. So that should be huge. And obviously, Travion Walker had a better year too, 10 sacks last year, so that's huge.
Huge.
Still not really living up to that number 1 pick status, but it's kind of similar to the Derek Stingley versus Sauce Gardner, where the guy that got taken after is just playing at an all-pro level with him and Hutchinson, where, hey, we took this guy 1 pick prior, and while he's good, the other guy's playing at an all-pro level. So it will be the wrong pick, no matter how good he is, till he gets to a level where he's at least even, if not better. So that's kind of what I take away from that. But they have a tough strength of schedule. I mean, it's good that they got a new DC, because this defense was Swiss cheese last year. They got Ryan Nielsen. Mike Caldwell didn't work out last year. And Trevor Lawrence, we talked about a little bit earlier, but 21 touchdowns to 14 picks. That's terrible, terrible. And his QBR dropped from 95 to 88. So just step backs everywhere. I like ETN a lot. I mean, obviously over 1,000 rushing yards. He's a guy I'm targeting in fantasy and best ball because of the capital. He's kind of going at that 3rd, 4th round. So he's a guy that I think will be factored in big there, but it's just tough for me, man. I mean, I think it's a team that can win some games, but I'm just not sold on it. Maybe Mac Jones is a guy at the end of the year. Okay, that's a little crazy.
That is a hot take. Yeah, I'm kind of step for step with you. I have them going 9-8, so 1 game differential.
Juan,
I agree with a lot of things you said. Obviously, T.O. took that big step back last year. A lot of it was injuries, completion rate down, threw 4 less touchdowns, 6 more picks. Success rate was down. QBR was down. How much of that was to injuries or just his play overall? I don't know. He has the most fumbles lost in the league over the last 3 seasons with 21. The next highest is 14. Wow. So turnovers are becoming a little bit of a problem for Trevor Lawrence. I like ETN a lot, especially for fantasy, but he's kind of inconsistent. He gets stuffed behind the line of scrimmage, the 2nd highest rate. It just seems like he's always trying to find the big play, where he does have those big plays, but you're playing behind the chains a little bit more with ETN. So I don't love that. He still had almost 1,500 total yards last year and 12 touchdowns on 325 touches. So he's a bell cow. He's going to get a ton. But Doug Peterson has said this summer they need to get Tank Bigsby involved in the offense. So can those touches decrease? I don't anticipate he's going to eclipse 325 touches this year. So I think it's going to go down a little bit. Love Cam Robinson. Mentioned earlier, not a great track record of Alabama tackles, but He only played 9 games last year, 4th amongst left tackles in pressure rate allowed. Huge for Trevor Lawrence because he really struggles under pressure. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when he's under pressure, actually, when he holds on to the ball. I don't know why, but it's just his playing style. I don't know. You even touched on Evan Ingram, career year, 114 catches, 963 yards, 4 touchdowns. Never be a big touchdown guy, but obviously he got targeted a shit ton last year. A lot of underneath routes, a lot of little hitches. So for PPR formats, I like Evan Ingram, but still, I wouldn't take him as ADP right now. I don't think he's going to repeat what he did last year. Kirk, a little bit of injuries last year, but still, that production was very similar when you look at per game stats. He's clearly Trevor Lawrence's favorite guy right now. Love Brian Thomas Jr. Elite speed, elite length, great downfield threat. 68% of his catches were 20 or more yards down the field last year. Jaden Daniels just chucking the ball to him. 68%. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, well, that also speaks to college football and how defense is just not a thing.
He had 12 touchdowns, too, on those. So a phenomenal deep threat. I think he can develop into a legitimate wide receiver 1. But you mentioned he was playing alongside Malik Neighbors. I don't know. I mean, this is similar to Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a similar thing where, okay, they went off as an offense. Obviously, they win the title. But Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. Burrow won the Heisman. 2 great receivers. We'll see if it's another repeat of that. But I do like Brian Thomas added to this offense. Defensively, I like the front. I don't like the secondary. Very similar to the Colts. Trayvon Walker, the 10 sacks, huge because he looked terrible as a rookie. So just the fact that he's progressing, let's see 14 sacks this year. Let's see 15 because Hutchinson's just been that dude since he stepped in the league, Let's see it. Tyson Campbell at corner. Took him a couple years out of UGA. Very bad last season. Got toasted after he had a big breakout the second year. They need him to return to form. You touched on Josh Allen, 17.5 sacks last year, 18.3% pressure rate, 2nd and 5th amongst all pass rushers. Legit stud. Giants should have drafted him. Nah, I'm not going to get into it now. Not going to get into it now, but that's who I wanted. Devin Lloyd. I'm not a believer in taking a linebacker round 1. Mentioned it earlier, but big second year last year after struggling as a rookie. That's good. Andre Sisco was solid. Darnell Savage is solid. They got some solid pieces, but yeah, this defense was just bad last year. I'm just worried about the secondary. I'm worried about Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be great. And they gave him the big-ass contract, so it's put up or shut up, man. Who are you? Are you that guy? Are you that generational tag? Or are you just another guy in that 12 to 16 range of quarterbacks in this league? Which, if you are, this team's not going to win a Super Bowl with Trevor Lawrence at the helm. 9-8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Solid, not great.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, it sounds like we're kind of regurgitating the similar sentiment. I mean, I really do think there's going to be a lot of question marks going into this offseason. I do think, and I don't like to ask for a guy's job, but I'm sure he'll be all right. I mean, he can collect unemployment, right? Like, what is it, like half your contract? So he'll still probably get $3 million from the government.
I think no. It's when you sign a deal as a head coach.
No, I'm fucking around, bro.
You fucking idiot.
I'm not. I know I'm joking around. Obviously, he wouldn't collect unemployment. I like how that's you. Well, if it wasn't guaranteed, maybe. No shit, he's not collecting unemployment. What? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. The Jaguars are just gonna be such a weird team this year. Just
I know,
so fucking weird.
They're a team that's gonna like 1 week lose to like I don't know. I have their schedule in front of me, but just lose to a team like the Raiders, and then they'll go out and beat like the Ravens or something. I just think they're gonna be a weird team this year.
I just feel like they missed their playoff window, honestly. And it was such a short window, but I just think the AFC has gotten so good that this team has just fallen behind. And you never like to say, like what Joe Burrow said, like, as long as I'm on the team, we have a playoff window or a Super Bowl window. But I don't even know if this team has a playoff window anymore. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on them. It's just so hard to see the Jaguars really going anywhere. Even if they do make the playoffs, like, they're maybe a divisional round team at best. It's just, I don't know.
I disagree. I think their playoff window is certainly open, but I agree. Their ceiling is a divisional round,
bro. Like
their ceiling,
it's so tough.
Divisional round. That's the ceiling.
There's just so many teams in the AFC that I would put over them. Like they're, in my opinion, they're like bottom 5 in the AFC, and it's crazy because they're still like a good team on paper, but in my opinion, they're probably bottom 5 in the AFC.
Okay. Bottom 5 in the AFC.
Maybe not. Broncos
at 9 wins.
Pats.
At 9 wins, that's bottom 5.
I had them at 8. Broncos, Pats.
Yeah, I'm at 8.
Broncos, Pats, Raiders. I mean, I had the Colts and Titans lower, so I guess they're not bottom 5. But I mean, between them, the Steelers, the Browns, I mean, they're kind of in that like tier of like just missing the playoffs, I guess.
Yeah,
but still, like I don't know, like you kind of didn't really lose anybody. You were in the playoffs 2 years ago. You haven't really lost anybody. You have the young quarterback. You paid him. This is supposed to be like when you're competing for the playoffs every year. I don't know.
All right, Drock, get your ass in here. What's your lock for the Jacksonville?
I was gonna switch it up after you guys just absolutely shit on the Jags, but I mean, this is so stupid for me to say this, and I don't even know why I took this, but I currently have Jags to win the division. But
why is that dumb?
Hey, their win total is 8.5. They're right. I mean, I think it's a 3-team race. I think any of those 3 teams can win it.
Well,
I'm just not as high on them as
race.
Houston or
Indy. Just because of the second most favorited in the division, but I actually was looking for Lawrence's rushing yards total for the entire season.
He's a sneaky runner. Sneaky runner for sure.
That's what I was going to take. I don't have the exact line on it, but that would be Drock's official pick, not Jags to win the division.
Okay.
I'll get that line for you, gentlemen, in a second.
All right. Yeah. I don't hate it, Drock. I don't hate it. MVP, Reagan. I have Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. I mean, this team goes as far as he does. I mean,
he's also the X factor for me. Most valuable player and the X factor.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say anyone else. I mean, none of the receivers, I think, will have a big enough impact to be that. And ETN, like, I don't see him ever becoming that, like, bell cow guy that he's really putting you over the edge and going to be considered a top 5 running back. Well, I think he's good for fantasy and stuff. So, yeah, I'd say Lawrence is the MVP and the X factor. I mean, this team goes as far as he does. If he looks like he did last year, they're not going anywhere. If he's at least close to what he looked like in year 2, if not a little bit better, then, yeah, they're a team pushing for the playoffs. So
absolutely. Rookie of the year, Brian Thomas Jr., stepping in that Calvin Ridley role. Could have a big impact. We'll see. The hit rate on wide receivers the first round is not great. So odds are some of these guys are going to be busts. I'm hoping it's not Brian Thomas Jr. because I do love his skill set, and I think he can become the true number 1 for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I don't know. I find Jerry Jones, the corner out of Florida State, I think he could have a big impact. I think, obviously, did they not? What's his name? Demarius. Not Demarius. Why am I blanking on it? He was the guy that led him in picks last year.
Darius Williams.
I don't know why I said Demarius though. Darius Williams.
Yeah, but he's.
Did they not? I thought they lost him. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why. Yeah. I got myself all freaking frazzled. No, I just think he's a guy. Not that Brian Thomas won't have a big impact. I think Jerry Jones has a chance to be one of the starting corners here and could have a big impact. So kind of like this tape out of Florida State. He was one of the obviously big reasons why they were such a good team last year. Obviously Jordan Travis being the biggest reason, and it was pretty evident once he went down how bad that team was, or non-dominant they were, but still they had a good defense and he was a big part of it.
Yeah, I didn't really love this draft class, to be honest with you. Like Mason Smith, they took in the second round, former 5-star, never lived up to the hype at LSU. They have a lot of depth within this defensive line, so I didn't love that pick either. For me, Thomas is clearly going to have the biggest role, like clearly. So that's why I feel like Thomas is a safe bet. Depoy, Josh Allen, clearly 18.5 sacks last year, in my opinion, unless you want to go a different route.
I mean, it's the same thing you could say with the Colts.
Foyesay to lock. You
have to give him respect. I mean, the guy's been a freaking tackling machine every year since he was in Atlanta. So I don't that was probably the route I would go. I guess I lean more to the linebackers that are just making all these tackles. And, if you don't have a linebacker that can make these tackles, and it kind of speaks to if the linebacker's making all these tackles, that means the D-line's not doing enough if they're getting up to the second level. So, I mean, but you could go either way. I mean, it's the same thing with the Colts we said earlier. It's like kind of 2 guys that are like the 1A, 1B of this defense, and they have some other decent players, but those are by far the 2 best guys.
All right. Dave, you got that line?
No, I don't see anything offered on any books right now. I don't see it even on ESPN Plus or
all right,
my
pick
favorite.
Another one then.
All right, I'll be back to you guys.
All right, while Dave is trying to find a line and because he wasn't prepared, we're going to go to the Houston Texans to talk about the team that won the division last year at 10-7. Got it done against the Colts in week 18. The win total, 9.5. Key losses, Jonathan Grenard, Sheldon Rankins, Malik Collins, Blake Cashman, Devin Singletary. A lot of players in that defensive front. But they did add Daniil Hunter, Azeez Al-Shaair, Danico Autry. Offensively, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon. They're like, okay, we have our guy. We have a franchise quarterback, legit stud on a rookie deal. Let's go get legit veteran talent around him. I love the moves the Texans made in the offseason. 10 wins last year, Reagan. Do they surpass it this year?
They don't surpass it, but they don't go below it. They win 10 games again.
No way, dude. I have 10 games. I have 10 wins too.
Dude, no way.
No way,
no
bro.
Way. Yeah, but the only difference is I have the Colts as one of the worst teams, and you have them as one of the best teams. I have this team winning the division. They'll get the 4th seed in the AFC. I mean, they've just gotten better. It just really speaks to how good the AFC is. But to me, they're going to be a playoff team for sure. I think CJ Stroud struggles a little bit more this year. I think he'll have more passing yards and more touchdowns, but I think he'll have more turnovers. I don't think he'll have another season with only 5 turnovers. Or 5 interceptions. That was pretty impressive for a rookie.
Very impressive.
But I think the fact that he's going to have a Stephon Diggs in his ear, kind of, hey, why didn't you throw that to me? He might force it a little bit more, have to deal with some of the struggles Josh Allen did, but it's all worth it for a talent like Diggs. And I'm really excited for Joe Mixon, man. I mean, he's a guy that I think will have easily over 1,000 all-purpose yards, but I think he'll be a double-digit touchdown guy for sure. He's definitely a guy that I don't know if Drock said it. I'm probably already picking Drock's pick for him to lead the league in rushing touchdowns because I know he's a big Joe Mixon glazer. But
that is a fact, but it's not.
But I'm excited, and obviously you got a guy like Laramie Tunsil, a guy that's been a Pro Bowler before, was a Pro Bowler last year, kind of the staple of it. And hey, it doesn't hurt that Will Anderson is, just the defensive rookie of the year from last year. And then you give him Daniil Hunter, a guy who had did you highlight how many sacks he had? I believe he had 17.
I did not
sacks?
highlight how many sacks he had, but I can tell you how many he had. He had 16 and a half.
I was trying to find it in my notes, but 16 and a half. I mean, I knew he was up there, but I mean, obviously it sucks to lose Jonathan Grenard. He's the younger guy, but I mean, hey, at least you're getting a 16 and a half sack guy to replace him. It's not the worst thing. So I think this team's going to be competing. I definitely think they're a team that could be in the Super Bowl, if not win the Super Bowl, as long as you have CJ Stroud. I think you have a chance if you have one of those elite quarterbacks, and they certainly do.
Yeah. Before we touch on the Texans here, Reagan, I just checked real quick. The video on Twitter has 16,000 views.
That's crazy.
Bro, it's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's sick. And I mean, the fact that you did, and I love that freaking little Chucky rat laugh you had, because it's going to be even crazier when you hear how much it has on TikTok.
Oh, my God.
Take a guess. How much you think we have on TikTok?
Is it more?
Yeah, that's why I can't wait to hear your little Chucky rat laugh again.
25K?
No, 34.6.
Oh my God, bro. 34K of just Jaden Daniels lobbing it up in triple coverage and Zach Ertz coming down with it.
Yeah,
let's go.
Speaking of that, now I got to deal with the Zach Ertz bullshit in Washington. I was harping about how he was killing Trey McBride's stock last year, and sure enough, as soon as the motherfucker gets cut or traded or whatever the fuck happened to him, then all of a sudden Trey McBride's a beast for fantasy. And trust me, I'm huge on Ben Sinnott. Like I'm like his biggest believer. I've been saying that since he was drafted. I've been trying to get him in every dynasty league, every best ball league. I have like 100% exposure of Ben Sinnott, but I know for a fact freaking Zach Ertz is going to be taking that shit for at least the first half of the year, and it sucks because it's going to really fuck his development, where I think he could have a Sam Laporta type rookie breakout, but it's not going to happen because of Zach's freaking Ertz. So instead, we're going to have to deal with that. But we're talking about the Texans, so I'm not going to go on too big of a Zach Ertz rant.
Sorry. I just had to touch on it just because it's blown up the last hour that we've been recording.
All
right. I got the Texans at 10-7. Same record as last year, although I think they're a better team on paper for sure. They have the 7th most difficult schedule this year, which is the biggest increase year over year for any team in the league. They only played 4 playoff teams last year, which is the lowest amount in the league. So, yeah, CJ Stroud was a dog, absolutely, stud. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult this year. They also played without 4 of their 5 starters in the offensive line for a big part of last season, which made it more impressive what CJ Stroud did. Obviously, Laramie Tunsil's an absolute stud at left tackle. He's a top 5 in almost every category. Just some nice little CJ Stroud stats. His touchdown interception ratio was best in the league. over 4,000 yards, 64% completion rate, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks. Very good. He's the youngest quarterback to ever win a playoff game. Most passing yards by a rookie in history in one game, that 470-yard performance. And started his career with, if you don't remember, Reagan, 191 passes before he threw his first pick. A lot of crazy all-time stats from Stroud. Nico Collins, nearly 1,300 yards and 80 catches and 8 touchdowns. Dalton Schultz, 59 catches, 635 yards, 5 touchdowns. You had Stephon Diggs, which, he kind of faded out of the offense in Buffalo the back half of last year, but Diggs is still a very good route runner. He's still a stud at receiver. You got Tank Dell back. I love what they have on offense. And Joe Mixon, like you mentioned, not another one of those guys, not a phenomenal NFL back in terms of yards per carry and breaking tackles and none of those stats, but just the pure volume that he gets in Cincinnati, which he will get again in Houston, I think is just huge for fantasy. I think if you have him at RB2, you're feeling pretty good. If you have him at flex, I think it's a great flex piece. If he's your RB3, I mean, your RB room's awesome. Defensively, they did play a very easy schedule last year, particularly quarterbacks and offenses. The easiest schedule of quarterbacks and offenses. So this year, the flip is script. They play a top 10 most difficult schedule. I'm curious to see how this defense looks. I love Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson on the edge. Awesome edge rushing duo. Derek Stingley starting to hit his stride. Another thing where it's like, okay, Trayvon Walker is too. He's no Sauce Gardner, but forced an incompletion on 20% of targets last season. 6th best amongst all corners, according to Pro Football Focus. That's good. That's really good. But, he's got to stay healthy. He's always had the injury problems. Got to stay healthy. Azeez Al-Shaair touched on him. The Titans lost him. Their leading tackler. Now he's in Houston. Big ad. Other linebacker, Henry To'oTo'o out of Alabama. Kind of struggled a lot. Jalen Petrie, they took out of Baylor 2 years ago at safety. He struggled a lot. So there are some question marks on defense for me, but there are definitely a lot of really good pieces. I like Kamari Lassitier, the corner they got out of Georgia. He was a stunning coverage. Didn't test very well, but really good player at Georgia. They added a couple other guys. Kalen Bullock, 3rd round as a safety. He was good in coverage too, so he could crack the lineup potentially. Ultimately for me, it's like, okay, it's year 2. Now teams have film on Stroud. Much more difficult schedule. I still think they win 10 games because they are a better team on paper, but I think they're getting so much hype right now. Like a lot of people think they're going to be in the AFC Championship game and it could potentially push for the Super Bowl. I'm not buying it. I think they're a wild card team, and could they win another playoff game? Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not buying the hype that they're going to go to the Super Bowl, any of that. 10-7. That's what I got for the Texans, and they lose the tiebreaker to the Colts.
But they do make the playoffs.
I think they make the playoffs, yes.
Gotcha. As what one of the wild cards?
Yeah, wild card.
Well, yeah,
obviously if I said
yeah, but I mean, like,
but not win the division.
Like, is what one of the wild card 1, 2, 3, or yours?
I don't know. That's for a pod down the road, Reagan, before the season starts when we do our playoff predictions and stuff. I gotta see. I gotta see how the rest of the AFC maps out when I start digging into it more. But I do think they will be one of the wild card teams.
Fair enough.
Drock, do you want to get in here? Your Texans pick here. Did you find your line for the Jaguars? Or are you still?
Yeah, we're gonna void Drock's other 2 picks. They never even offered Trevor Lawrence his rushing yards for the entire season last year, so I'm assuming they're not offering it this year. So we're gonna go and switch it up with ETN's over rushing yards for the year at 900 flat.
Why? Because he's on your fantasy team.
Because you want him so badly off my roster. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm.
Yeah, I sent him a deal. It was actually a pretty good deal. Like, Najee in a 1st round pick. I was willing to go more, and he counters with Bijan Robinson and 2 firsts for ETN. I'm like, all right, dude, you're not even fun to do fantasy with because you just don't trade because you're scared everyone's gonna smack your ass around, and then you just counter with bullshit offers.
Yeah, PTSD from you just taking advantage of me. So we're not gonna. My first year in fantasy, and you're just like, "Oh, it's such a good trade. It's such a good trade." I'm like, "Dude, just take it, whatever."
Yeah, I remember we were at Chipotle too. It was awesome.
Yeah, I completely remember this.
I saw Reagan fucking tore his head off.
Did you guys lady in the Trampa burrito?
No, he wanted to, but I said no.
Oh.
No.
He ain't a prude. He's a prude.
I am prude. All right, long shot, but good value. The Texans to score 1+ passing touchdown in every game this season at +1,000.
Stroud to throw a touchdown every game.
It's a long shot because it has to be passing touchdown, but I like the odds. I'm going to sprinkle it, not going to go slamming it as hard, just a little touchy slam it. So that's what he's going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd be curious to look at his game log last year if he threw a touchdown every game. I don't know. Reagan, what are your thoughts on that? Oh, all right. Reagan's gone, guys. His computer shut off. So we're going to take a quick break and be back to finish up the pod. Yeah, you didn't have it plugged in. Yeah, so we're back. Reagan's computer's back on. Just randomly shut off. Probably should plug it in before you do a podcast.
No, it didn't die. I think it just crashed, bro. I have so many tabs open. I'm always just like watching videos and just a creature of habit trying to learn more about the NFL game.
Oh, wow. I love that, dude. You're always on your grind, always trying to get better at your craft. So I respect that. All right, Reagan, you're MVP for the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud, come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, obviously it's CJ Stroud. I mean, he's the MVP. This team goes as far as he does. He's not the X factor in this case because I expect him to play at an MVP level. I don't really think he has a floor like Trevor Lawrence did, like we were talking about before. So he's the MVP for me. I'm assuming that's the same for you. So my X factor, this one's a little more interesting. But I'm going to go with Will Anderson and the fact that he will become that elite edge rusher. Like, obviously, last year he was Defensive Rookie of the Year with 10, but he's the X factor if he can push up to 15 to 17 sacks, really get into that higher echelon of double-digit sacks.
I like that pick, Reagan. I like that a lot. I'm going a different route. I'm going Stephon Diggs. If you go in a couple week stretch as Diggs and you're not getting the targets, you're not the primary guy like you were in Buffalo up until halfway through last season. Stroud's finding Nico Collins. He's finding Tank Dell. Is that going to be a problem for Diggs? He's had we heard a lot of issues in Buffalo. Diggs was upset he wasn't getting the ball, this and that, a lot of beef with Josh Allen. I like the chemistry that this team had last year. They were almost like we have nothing to lose. A lot of young bucks. Now you have this veteran Diggs that steps in. His personality, locker room fit. What if he's not the number one guy? That's the X factor for me because it could derail this offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's also a great pick as well.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
This is one, like, I won't even debate you on that. Like, I won't even have a debate. I'll hear you out. I mean, like I said, I kind of thought Will Anderson Jr., but, I will accept your X factor pick on that one.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's really what I was looking for was your approval. Rookie of the Year.
Well, this one's kind of tough because obviously they didn't even have a first-round pick this year.
Yep.
So it's really, pulling teeth here. How many of these guys will really have how many of these guys do we even expect to be in positions to start this year?
Yeah, I mean, like Blake Fisher, their right tackle they took in round 2. He's not going to start over Titus Howard right now. It almost seems like a pick for the future. Kalen Bullock could get some time early at safety. Cade Stover, tight end from LSU, obviously has some chemistry with Stroud built in.
Looks
He's
like
very good blocker, though. I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty strong class, but the only guy that I see starting right away is Kamari Lazatir out of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I went with.
Yeah, that's who I would go with as well, just because he is the only guy that's going to play. And also, I neither of us really got into it before, but another big impact for this team is the special teams additions. They re-signed Fairbairn, a guy who we've seen be a Pro Bowler before, and I believe he was named All-Pro one season. If not All-Pro, he's definitely been a Pro Bowler. So getting him back, he's been one of the most consistent kickers, so that's huge for them. And obviously going out and getting Tommy Townsend from the Chiefs, he's been one of the most punters in the league as well, another guy that's been at an All-Pro before. So I think those are two huge moves that honestly aren't highlighted enough, but that is a big reason why this team could be a Super Bowl contender because they're going to be elite in the special teams game as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we love our special team. Shout out Charlie. Shout out George. Depoy, you have Will Anderson?
I do. Yes, I do.
I have Danielle Hunter. I have the other edge rusher. 16.5 sacks last year. I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Will, so Will can take that next step and start becoming one of those elite pass rushers, but I still think Hunter's that guy. I think he has more sacks than Will Anderson this year.
I like this defense a lot, too. I'm not going to lie. It's very good, and I find it very funny that they went out and got Alshire and that they went out and got Autry. So two of their probably big impact guys in the defense are from the Titans. So got to love that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a Titans fan, not happy about that. All right, Reagan, that wraps up all 4 teams. Let's do our little fantasy draft, huh?
Yeah, and hot take, this could be the number 1 defense in fantasy. Or, I mean, in the NFL this year.
Whoa, that's scorching hot.
That's my
that's
hot
scorching
take.
hot. Okay.
Hey man, they don't have a lot of holes.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a solid defense for sure.
They got some guys at every level.
They do. I just don't know. Number one, though.
That's why I said hot take. I didn't say here's a lukewarm take plus 100. I said hot.
Wait, so I believe you get the first pick this time around, correct?
I do, and I will back it up by taking now. Imagine I took the Texans defense right there. Yeah, I mean, fuck, man. Is there a clear-cut guy in this division that we want? I mean,
to go number one, to go clear-cut number one.
Dogs. I mean, the Titans don't really have that dog anymore now that Henry's gone. The Jaguars don't really got those dogs. I'll go Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
give me Jonathan Taylor.
I think that's a good pick.
Let me take him.
Okay.
I know it is.
You're going JT. See, I'm fine with Ingram or Schultz. I don't want to go tight end. I think I got to go receiver. I'm going to go Nico Collins. And I'm going to go Michael Pittman.
Wow. Okay, well, I'll take
double dip.
I'll take Anthony Richardson because he's going to be the best fantasy quarterback when you're listening to this video. This is for fantasy, not NFL. I know CJ Stroud's better, so if you're watching this video, please don't just pick Colin because he has CJ Stroud and you think he's better, because he is better, but not for fantasy.
No, yeah, I was thinking about going Richardson too there because I was like, he's going to be a better fantasy, just the rushing upside compared to a pocket passer. It's just yeah.
And then I will take the best tight end in the division. I will take Evan Ingram because he's the best fantasy tight end. I mean, the dude had 90 catches last year. He was a Pro Bowler. I think he was at 1,000 yards or just shy. But I will take him.
All right, so you have your running back. You have your tight ends.
I just need my wide receivers in my defense.
And I only have wide receivers. So that means, therefore, I can go defense. I almost want to take the Texans just because you just said they could be the best defense in the league this year. So I will go with the Texans defense. Yeah, and then I guess I'm just filling out the roster now. CJ Stroud.
Yeah. So you have Nico and Pittman. So I will go with Diggs and
Brian Thomas.
That's where it gets interesting, bro.
You can't go Tank Dell. You just got Diggs.
I'll just go DeAndre Hopkins off the name, man.
DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. So I'm going to go Travis Etienne and Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz.
All right. Give me the Colts defense.
Okay. You don't sound too pumped with that pick there.
No, they're all pretty gross. It's like Titans, Colts, Jags. They're all pretty gross. But
yeah,
at least the Colts probably had the best defense out of the three last year. So.
All right. So to recap, I got Stroud, Etienne, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman, Dalton Schultz, Texans defense.
All right. To recap, so I got Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor. I got DeAndre Hopkins. I got Stephon Diggs. I got Evan Ingram, and I got the Colts defense.
Those are some pretty solid teams. A lot of good fantasy assets in this division.
It'll definitely make for a better video. I mean, it was tough doing the NFC East because it was just so lopsided, and it was just like the Cowboys versus the Eagles. But
yeah,
this one and the last one, at least it makes it interesting. So I'm curious to see what the people think when we post this one.
Awesome. All right.
Dave,
you want to wrap it up, Reagan?
Well, I want to hear Dave's fantasy lock. Got to keep it for all the segments.
Dave doesn't have a fantasy lock.
Yes, he does.
You want to give me a what am I doing?
Dave, give us a fantasy lock. Who's the locked and loaded stud this week?
Fantasy lock.
Loaded Salamit stud of the year.
In the division?
Yeah, come on. Give me one stud. One guy you're targeting in fantasy that you know is going to have a big year.
ETN, baby.
Yeah, classics. He's on his team.
That's fine. Hey, he's slamming all of his poker chips on the table. He's doubling down. He's tripling down. He's slamming that ETN stock. Love to hear it. Yeah, but that wraps it up, man. Great pod.
That wraps it up, man. That was a fun one, dude. That was definitely a fun one. Some good content there.
Polos. We've been pushing them a little bit. We're going to start pushing them more. But like we said, you can get 1 for 40 or 2 for 70. We got the nice Carolina blue. And then we got that nice white. It'll be perfect if you're eating some chicken wings during football season. It'll be nice. You can get it all multicolored during football season. Coming well as a napkin. Nah, jokes aside. Yeah, they're both super nice, especially the white. It's sharp and matches with anything.
Absolutely. And if you're not following us on Twitter or TikTok, as these videos are blowing up to tens of thousands of views, give us a follow, please.
Yeah,
we would
do we want the
appreciate it.
count? Do we want the count right now? What do you want to make a quick guess? What are we at on TikTok?
I looked at Twitter like a minute after I said we had 16K and it was 17K. So something else, so it's still going crazy.
Yeah, TikTok's 39.3 and Twitter. Are you just looked at Twitter? Or that was
17K. 17K. Let's go. Hot diggity
would've
dog.
thought?
All right, boys. We'll catch you next week. Appreciate you for tuning in.